And what's up, everybody, and welcome back to Celluloid Psychosis. I am your host, TJ Bowser, and joining me as always is the very British, very handsome Mr. Paul Ashford.
Hey, how we doing? We all good?
And we have a very special guest, our friend Jessie Hobson. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So today we're going to go back to our normal review format with a very, very special film, which we all saw very, very recently. But first, let's get into what we did this week. We will start us off with our guest. Jessie, how was your week?
Oh, week is going good so far. Just kind of watching screeners, writing reviews. Nothing. Oh, I did see the new Ghost movie on Sunday, so that was pretty cool. Took the whole family to go see that. 3 hours in the theater, popcorn. You know, you got the $15 bucket. So what's not to love?
Yeah. Paul, what about yourself?
Not too much. Just work as always. Haven't had a day off yet this week, but I've got a couple coming up, so I'm looking forward to chilling out a bit. Obviously, I've been watching the movie we're talking about today as well. Other than that, I've just bought myself a Atari Lynx. I'm deep into Atari stuff at the moment with my retro collecting, so I'm looking forward to that turning up and getting to play a few games. This one I kind of lusted after as a kid, so yeah, very much looking forward to that. How about yourself?
Well, Saturday I went to one of those screeners of Evil Does Not Exist. That's from the same director as Drive My Car. And that movie was a slow burn with a very like mic drop type ending. Like even my fiance was like, what the hell just happened? And I was like, yeah, that just did happen. And it was very out of nowhere. And that really doesn't happen in modern cinema much anymore. It's kind of just, yeah, we all know how it is. But I've been watching a lot of film. There's this Steven Van Zandt documentary that came out on Max. That's really, really good. Definitely go check that out if you guys have Max. But just been doing some work stuff. Was filming Jeeps today, which was really fun. And now we're here to do this podcast. Jessie, before we start into this movie, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners?
Sure, man. So my name is Jessie Hobson. Professionally, what I do, I'm a coordinator for a college. So I help with film productions. We create content for the school as a whole, but a lot of online content production. So not only are we working on the aspect of the content for the classes, but we also do the events and things like that. So a lot of coordination on my part. Outside of that, I am like I guess an actor per se. I call myself that, but I've done a lot of productions as far as commercials, films. I was in the most recent Puppet Master. I was also in VFW, and then I have another film that's coming out this year. I start alongside Dave Sheridan and Felissa Rose called Cult of Blood, and that one I'm really excited about. Long time coming. I think we filmed about 2 years ago at this point, and it's a heavy editing process for this one because a lot of it was shot in front of the green screen, and yeah, so that's also really cool. And then outside of that, I run a website called cinedump.com, and with Cinedump, this was launched back in 2005, and it's really starting to get hot and heavy right now. Or not 2005, 2011. Sorry, I graduated high school 2005, and it's starting to get really, really prominent right now. Where we're doing reviews, interviews, actors, directors, big names like that. I'm surprised I even get sometimes, but yeah, we highlight a lot of the, a lot stuff like the movie that we're going to talk about today, but also bigger budget films, anything that kind of comes across our desk. And I'm really proud of how far it's came. So cinedump.com for, all of the who's it's and what's it's galore.
Awesome. There you guys go. Go follow all the stuff he just talked about and go watch those movies that he did just talk about as well. Those are some awesome movies. That Puppet Master has some awesome kills in it. Yeah, but without further ado, let's get into this week's film. And this week's film is I Saw the TV Glow. Came out this year. There's some like some screenings going on. A24 does some smaller things on select theaters. It's really cool. I saw mine at an AMC, I want to say. But where did you see yours, Jesse?
I actually got a screener of it from A24. They did a showing here in Houston at an Edwards Regal Cinema, and it's actually still in theaters here. Whenever we were looking for showtimes for Ghost, I noticed that it's very hot and heavy out here in Houston. So if you guys are interested and you're in the Texas area, you can still catch it at the cinema, which I would recommend. I have for you guys might not know, but I have a fresh 6-month-old baby, so we're not going to the cinemas or the screenings as much as I would normally like, but this is one to be experienced however you can, but I would recommend a theater for sure.
Awesome. So this movie was directed by Jane Schonenbrunn, right? Is that how you say it?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Sounds
she
good.
also directed We're All Going to the World's Fair, which is also a very interesting movie. That one right there. My copy's on the way. I had to add it to this month's order from Vinegar Syndrome. I didn't get a slipcover like you, though.
Don't sound jealous.
Yeah. I believe that movie's on Max as well right now. You can watch that. So, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. It's interesting.
Yeah, I believe Utopia put that one out. And again, I watched a screener of that. And I remember my wife and I just kind of left like a lot like I Saw the TV Glow. It's also very nostalgic for me because I remember sitting in a room, as a kid and like kind of putting a lot of time and effort into things online that don't really matter. Like when you put so much time and effort into stuff that is only matters to like a very small sect of people, you can begin to kind of like believe shit that isn't real, and that kind of plays into both of these films, which I like them both, but I like the I Saw the TV Glow a little bit better because I relate to it a little bit more, but definitely nostalgic in both regards.
For sure. Written by Jane as well, starring Justice Smith from Jurassic World Dominion, Bridget Lundy Payne from Bill and Ted Face the Music, Ian Foreman, Helena Howard, and Fred frickin' Durst. Does he have like one line the whole movie, right?
I thought he was unrecognizable as well.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. The first time I watched it, I didn't even realize that was him. So yeah,
I believe his only line is "Isn't that for girls?"
Yeah, isn't that a show for girls? A real horrible line as well, to be fair. Real horrible line.
Paul, you want to read that plot?
Yeah, let's go for it. So, this story follows Owen, who forms a deep bond with Maddie in 1996 over their shared love for the TV show The Pink Opaque. As they navigate personal struggles, including Owen's mother's illness and Maddie's own challenges, their connection becomes a refuge. Decades later, Owen, now caring for his father, rediscovers the show, triggering reflections on nostalgia and the enduring impact of past relationships on his life.
Yeah, that's probably the only way to say it without really spoiling a bunch of stuff for really getting into crazy lore things.
Yeah.
Try to be as vague as possible there.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's just kind of get into it.
Mm-hmm.
When you saw the trailer, guys, we'll start with Jessie. Did you expect any of this? What did you expect?
Well, the trailer doesn't really give you much. It just, being a fan of like analog, like VHS cassettes and stuff, it was like speaking to me, but I really didn't know, obviously the plot is kind of like, it is what you make it. Mm-hmm. But, when it's just read to you like that, but it definitely doesn't really give you enough to know exactly what you're getting into. So the trailer is enough for me to be interested, but it didn't deliver too much, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I really liked the trailer, and I was in it, 100%, from the get-go.
And did it meet your expectations?
I would say that it surpassed them because there's a lot to this film, like and I'm sure maybe this is why you reached out to me about this film, because I made the post about that I am a straight white man and this is my favorite film of the year, and it's there's there's a lot of really interesting context to this film based on the director and where she's kind of telling this story from. But for me, it kind of scratched an itch that I didn't even know was there, and it kind of goes beyond just what is on screen. And the more I dig into it, the more I talked about it with my wife, the more I really enjoyed this film.
I agree with you. Paul, you watched the trailer.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
You sent me the link to the YouTube for the trailer. I'd never heard of the film. I've never seen the first movie as well by the director. So I was completely blind on this one. And I'd say it looked interesting to me. It looked a bit Stranger Things. And I love, all that Stranger Things vibes. So it looks a bit more like a 90s. But I literally thought it was going to be a 90s Stranger Things as a movie. So yeah, like you said as well, it doesn't give much away at all. And to be fair, it's probably nothing like the actual movie is either.
Yeah,
it was just complete shock to me. So yeah, trailer wise, it doesn't give much away. I just thought Stranger Things, and I probably couldn't have been any more wrong from what the movie I watched was.
So it did not meet your expectations at all.
Well, the movie itself.
Yeah.
Well, the trailer.
Well, from the trailer, the trailer set like an expectation. Did that movie meet that expectation?
Yeah, it was complete. I felt completely unprepared for what I watched.
Okay.
Talking about the movie itself, and like the trailer's nothing like what I was thinking it was going to be. That doesn't happen very often.
Is that something that you would prefer? Because I know a lot with the trailers that we get these days, Paul. They seem to almost tell too much. Would you prefer to know nothing, or a little bit, or how would you prefer to go into a film? I've watched a few episodes of y'all's podcast, but I still need to gauge you guys. I want to know more, so it's cool for me to get to know.
I like to know a little bit about the movie, and brief.
Paul, you're robotic right now. Refresh. British problems. He'll be back.
All good.
Paul?
How's that?
Oh, you still sound terrible. Unplug and plug back in. Okay, so he'll be back, and I'll pop him back in. Hopefully he sounds a lot better. Sometimes that happens in live shows.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were talking about modern trailers. Yes, it definitely gives away way too much, and you almost don't even want to go to movies and see the trailers because it's just going to spoil something for you.
Yeah, and I think that's why I liked this film ultimately, is because regardless of, even if we spoil this, right? Mm-hmm. There's the journey is I think more important, because and it's going to be a different experience for everybody. Absolutely. And that's what I like about both of this director's films. I'm really curious to see what they do next.
Absolutely.
Hey, Paul.
Hello.
There we go.
It's better.
Okay. So sorry. I'm a million miles away from everyone else. I apologize.
Does Jane go by she or they, or is it she they?
I believe it's they. It's they.
Yeah.
It's they. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was saying before I broke up. The trailer doesn't prepare you for how deep this film is. There's just so many different things going on in the movie. Yeah, but I don't think any trailer could prepare you for what we saw.
And the non-linear kind of story, I feel kind of helps with the weird thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's good stuff. And I like the lapses in time. They're very odd numbers.
Yeah,
it's just random. Yeah. Visually, this movie's nuts. I mean, even like from the very opening scene when you see the pavement with like the neon chalk, it's
Yeah,
just like you're in for a
beautiful.
visual treat.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets progressively weirder from there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
How would you even describe this? I mean, like there's like scenes where you like it's clearly indie stuff, right?
Hmm.
They come from like an indie background with like the writing on top
Yeah,
of the film and stuff. But then other
yeah.
things are like overly cinematic as fuck.
Hmm.
Jesse, thoughts?
It kind of reminded me a little bit of like It Follows or
Mhm.
Donnie Darko, it where we can kind of look back, like there is a nostalgia sense to it, but it's almost like there's this like timelessness as well. So like in It Follows, they have the phone that's like a seashell, so
Mhm.
it's not really from any era. And this, it's like, is this 80s? Is this 90s? But it's regardless of where it actually falls, it's almost um, like a dream. So
Mhm.
there's really no set time or set era or set like look. It's just like there's this like texture to it where it's just kind of looking back,
Hmm.
and that really worked for me. But to kind of go to where you're talking about more so is that with the opening shot, or like it's almost like suburbs meets like night. So like dusk in all
Mhm.
reality is kind of where my mind went. Like there's a scene where they're walking on the football field. It just seemed like we were kind of watching someone else's dream, or uh, like looking back at something throughout the whole entire film, which I really kind of appreciated. And there's that aspect of like justice breaking the fourth wall too,
Mhm.
where
Hmm.
he's talking to us and we're like, okay, so what is truly going on here? And it's just really like a non-linear dream is essentially is what we have.
Hmm.
And when you follow it from like the beginning campfire where he's talking to us, I mean, and you kind of like, okay, he's telling us this story the whole time. It's just you got to understand like these lapses in time is like he's saying. So 8 years later, but before he like addresses us again, like like you said, these lapses in the fourth wall, uh, it's very strange because it comes out of nowhere and it's very stylistically it's an interesting choice, but I dig it.
Hmm.
It's very modern. Paul?
Yeah, I found it almost a bit jarring the first time I watched it because I just didn't know quite what was going on.
Mhm.
Like you said, there's like all this style, the colors, the lighting, all that stuff. But then they were watching the TV show, and that was so spot on. Like when it cut into the pink opaque and had the 90s style like filter. It was
Mhm.
like you're literally, and then it shows on the TV, and the next minute you're watching it as though you're in the movie yourself, in the TV show yourself. Um, yeah, I just found it as it's kind of all over the place, but it kind of worked. To be honest, when I first watched it, I've watched it twice now. The first time I watched it, I was just like, "Well, that was something," and I just there was a lot of it. I didn't understand a lot of it, and I was like, "I don't know why TJ likes this so much." But then I said to TJ, like, I found myself thinking about it through the night. I was just in night thinking about things. I was like, oh yeah, and then I'm going to watch it again tomorrow. I eventually just ended up watching it twice, and the second time it just clicks so much better than it did the first time around. That's
Awesome.
for me personally. But
Awesome.
there's just so much imagery and
Mhm.
stuff you can have your own thoughts on, like what the meanings and stuff. It's
Yeah.
just yeah, it's crazy. I just feel it's just a weird experience. Like you said, dreamlike.
Yeah.
Definitely dreamlike.
What's funny is the first time I watched it, I was with my 13-year-old daughter at the time, and she went to use the bathroom, and she didn't come back for like 10 minutes, so I left. So I missed the entire like theme park sequence. So in the second watch, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like
Yeah.
his mom's sick. I was
Yeah.
like, she just died out of nowhere. Spoiler alert. And and whenever I watched it the first time, and I was like, oh, okay. So and whenever I first came back, it was whenever he's walking through the halls,
Hmm.
and it's like right whenever before they're about to talk. Like I think, yeah, whenever he's walking through the halls and all that scribbling's going on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's when he's going to find the tape, isn't it,
Yes.
in the dark room? Yeah, that just that scene alone was amazing.
Yeah.
because they had like all the sayings on the boards as he walks along, plus all the stuff being written on the screen, the videotape being drawn. It was, just
If
so much
you're a
going on.
90s kid, this is pure nostalgia.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very much a bit like Stranger Things in the 90s, the style wise, but the story is completely different.
Mhm.
But it's just felt really relatable for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why, because
We can talk about that now then. I think personally, I think it's because we've all like consumed something when we were younger and we're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then
Mhm.
watch it as adults, are like, what the fuck did we
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
And this is kind of like that concept turned up to 11.
Hmm.
Jesse?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on before one thing.
Mhm.
Whenever they're watching the Pink Opaque, did you guys notice like the font was like very reminiscent of like
Yep.
Snick or Are You
Yes.
Afraid of the Dark? And
Hmm.
I like even that little just aspect of it like took me back to that time. And it's very interesting because it's like you said, TJ, it's like nostalgia to 11.
Yeah.
And I think Jane, she points something out like, because I've watched interviews and I've dug deep into this, man. Like
Hmm.
it's wild. Like so not only is this kind of like a process or like a breakdown of nostalgia, it's almost like negative nostalgia.
Mhm.
Like whenever you watch, because as a society we kind of look at nostalgia as something positive, we never really look at it as a negative. And I never really thought about that until I saw this movie, because like the scene whenever he's, spoiler alert obviously, but the scene whenever he goes and like throws his TV away and he's like, okay, I can watch Pink Opaque now, and it's streaming and it's not the way that he remembered it. So it's like he's kind of conforming, and that's kind of what he's dealing with, is like it's a huge metaphor for him conforming to like society. Because if we look back at his trials and tribulations of like him walking on the football field, he's wearing a dress, like
Mhm.
he's kind of dealing with his sexuality.
Oh yeah.
And then like moving forward, like he's no longer like gay, he's now a straight man that's married and has kids, and everything's just
Well,
different.
is he even gay? Because
Yeah,
whenever that conversation with Maddie, do you like boys or girls?
yeah,
And he's like, I
I
like
love
TV
TV
shows.
shows.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
but that's kind of like the back to the innocence of it all. Like we watch this show, and it's we never we he's not really forced to conform at that point. Like it's not really until he becomes an adult where he's forced to like keep his sexuality inside.
yeah.
And that kind of leads to the build up or the conclusion of the film. But it's interesting to kind of like get to that point. And what I was saying about the negative nostalgia is like, so he looks back at this life or this his reality as a child, and it's just interesting. It's not something that I ever really considered like
Mhm.
a negative nostalgia, because I can remember times where I looked at like watched Are You Afraid of the Dark as an adult, or even listened to like a song, and like you never really think about it being a bad experience until you really think about it. Like maybe there's a song where if that's playing in a car, and a guy tries to kiss you and you're not into it, and then now every time you hear that song you're going to think about that
Mhm.
negative experience. It's nostalgia in a way that isn't talked about or communicated, especially in the avenue of a film. And this movie feels, or I know that this movie is kind of like about growing up in the suburbs and not being able to kind of like show your sexuality, and being forced to conform. And it's just a wild concept, and it's really a neat vehicle to kind of talk about and navigate a world that I never really even considered. So I know that it took a long way to
Yeah.
get there, but there's just it's such a complex story.
It is.
And
Yeah.
again, I'm a straight white man, and it means so much to me that this story, because it's a very relatable story, because no matter what you're hiding inside you, we all conform in one way or another. It's just nature of the beast. So sorry I took so much time, but
It's all
very,
good.
very passionate. And I really, really think that Jane is on something with this negative or not positive nostalgia. It's really cool to think about.
Paul?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's a really interesting point about the negative nostalgia, because everything about when they flew back to the 90s was just really dark and creepy, and I was trying. I don't know why I could relate to everything so much. Obviously, again, I'm a white straight man as well.
Hell
but,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's I kind of came, obviously, to start with. Owen was the weird kid, and Maddie was the weird. Yeah, they were both weird kids, kind of singled out from everyone else. Maybe you know, when I was a kid at school, I was into horror films at school. I was into wrestling. You get picked on for that a bit as well from people. I was kind of not to the degree that maybe they did, but you felt a bit left out sometimes. Missing out on friends' parties as well, or ex-friends' parties. I thought it was quite interesting when he obviously pretends to go to his friend's house so he can go stay over at Maddie's to watch the Pinko Pig. That's the sort of stuff. And the mum was like, "Oh, I didn't think you were friends with whatever the guy's name was for 2 years now." And you can just relate to that. You lose friends with people, and everyone else goes to the parties, and you suddenly stop going. Just little things like that I could just relate to for some reason. It's just that being singled out for something. Obviously, not to the degree that happens in this movie and how it progresses, but I just don't know why. I just felt it's so relatable, especially on the second viewing. It's just almost a bit chilling, and even some of the stuff set in the more modern times. Just for me, the one scene that stuck out was so awkward. Was when he's just going to the drive-through to order a burger, and the voice is just like every time he says something, the voice through the microphone, the speaker says something, and he just can't get his order in. And it takes 2 or 3 attempts just to get his order in. It's just so horribly awkward. And like, oh god, I've done that before. And then, and then obviously he straight from that he then goes to work, opens the office door, walks in on his boss.
Yeah.
With what's going on, it's just like that. Just 2 minutes or however long it took is just so incredibly cringeworthy, and like, oh man, I could just imagine that happening, and relatable. It's like, oof. But yeah, that's my take on it. But yeah, I love that the negative nostalgia. That's a really interesting point, and not something I've seen before. Stranger Things is always very, oh man, the 80s is amazing. Let's dress up as Ghostbusters, and we've all got our Game Boys and whatever. But yeah, this was so different.
Yeah, I could remember a time where, or like recall an exact moment where I was watching an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, and I was watching it at like my grandmother's house, and the house was like scattered with dolls, and so I was more scared of the environment than I was the actual show, but it like heightened that fear, and it's so like I don't know why, but this kind of ignited that memory in my mind. Well, I guess I do know why, because it's very similar or relatable in a sense, but I don't know. There is a lot of nostalgia here, but then it's like a self discovery as well, and it's just interesting to kind of look back, or like you were saying, to know that there are other weird kids or kids that were in similar situations that might be experiencing things on like even like a more deep level, or like having bigger problems. And like, for me, it was like, oh, I hope I can get a Michael Jordan card, in my next pack. And these guys are worried about their sexuality, or, going to whoever's house the next day. It's just an really interesting movie and concept.
It gives you different perspective that we never would have seen, especially with all of our different backgrounds, but being all straight white men, and all that jazz. This had some pretty gnarly atmosphere, especially whenever you go into the weird television scenes. And, you mentioned that Jane kind of captured the perfect like essence of that 90s cheesy television stuff that, Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and all that jazz. And it was that Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, Mr. Squirly Whirly was his name. Yeah, that was incredible. That was obviously the first. That's the first demon we saw as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right at the start, and I was just like, from that visual of, like I said, the neon with the ice cream slowly going to the ice cream truck with the smoke coming out, and suddenly, boom, he's right there in front of you. Yeah, that was amazing. Really good effects. I guess that looked very practical as well. At least the first version of him. Obviously, we do see him. Spoiler alert! At the end of the film, in a completely.
I kind of like the second version too. I mean,
yeah, different reasons. I guess that was creepy, but I don't know. It was like a sort of a silly creepy version, wasn't it?
I'd compare that to that mask from Goosebumps.
Yeah.
I remember that being terrifying as a kid, and now it's just like, eh.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Adventures of Pete and Pete, but there is like a ice cream character, ice cream man character, and I think that was kind of a nod to that.
Oh, okay.
Because in the show, from what I remember, the whole point of that episode was like, what does he do during the summer? And I was like,
okay.
And I had forgotten about that episode until watching this, and I'm like, yeah, that is kind of an interesting concept. You know, what does he do during the summer? But yeah, like Pete and Pete was one of those ones. It was kind of like Twin Peaks for kids, and that's kind of where I feel like a lot of the tone was pulled to kind of deliver on that episode, or those episodes of the Opaque Peak or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was very Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
With the two girls as the heroines as well. One thing I did about the only thing about about Mr. Squirrely Whirly, I got serious Pizza the Hut vibes from Spaceballs as well. Just the similar sort of slimy and the mouth. But,
the music of this movie is fantastic. Alex G. He did Jane's other movie as well, and perfect. Everything about this is perfect. The Pink Opaque theme, boy, does that hit hard. Yeah. The music for election night, whenever we first get that opening theme, is so good. I like that whole election sequence. I think it's really cool, especially whenever he's in the voting booth, and it kind of sets the tone of everybody that was politically at that time all there. It's really cool. Really, really cool to see that kind of jump back into my youth. Yeah. It's interesting. Very, very interesting.
I did like the music piece when he again meets up with Maddie 10 years later, and they go to that bar, and there's some of the lyrics are, "I saw the TV glow from that girl."
Clawhammer.
Was that Clawhammer? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. That song was. I just found that really cool. The lyrics are really good, and obviously just the way she performed it on stage as well.
That has to be where Jane got the title from.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's really good. And then it went to the second song, which is like almost like a screamy emo / heavy metal song where they're still talking. It's just again such a jarring difference between two songs, much like some of the scenes in the movie are.
Well, because then I think Owen runs out during the screaming bit, so it kind of like shows you like the parallels of, oh, what is this place? It's all magical, and oh my god, I'm scared. Yeah. Was a fun scene.
The band or the singer, it was Phoebe Bridgers, which my wife actually pointed out when we were watching it, and that's something that I guess we've listened to before, but I don't remember that particular song, but at least the name is familiar.
The second
to me.
Girl is
the second girl.
Okay.
Yeah. But the music in the beginning, I used to work at a music store. I used to work like sell CDs and records and stuff, and we also sold videos and books, but I worked in the music section, and so there was always like promos and discs that were sent to us to play in the store, and there's a couple songs in this that sounded very familiar to me, so I'm gonna I tried to Shazam them, but I think they're new or made for this movie.
Oh yeah.
But I need to figure out that connection, or at least if it's like one of those things where they're like, oh, this kind of sounds nostalgic.
The
vinyl soundtrack sold out everywhere I look. Yeah. And it's nuts, but I'm also kind of happy that that's a thing, because that means Jane's work's getting viewed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally got an email about it going on pre-sale, but I hadn't seen the movie yet, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, I want to see it, and then maybe I'll buy it. But then
Why do they do that? Release the music before the movie.
the true fans, the ones that like our subscribers, are gonna buy it.
that FOMO.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you every time. So, I really love the acting in this movie. I think everybody does a fantastic job. I really like Maddie. I like how she gives almost like a Kristen Stewart like performance with that stone face sometimes, and it definitely works for that type of character because she tries to play cool around him all the time because she has to be that cool kid, and Owen's just like intimidated as fuck, and you can feel that with every interaction that they have, even up at the end. And something I also thought was really interesting is whenever she asked the first time to run away, and he just spazzes the fuck out, and is like goes to that mom, that random person's mom, and is like, help me, I'm scared.
I don't want to leave.
Yeah, I don't want to leave. And she's totally like, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my. And a question that begs here with what was going on, and was he actually in this world created by Mr. Melancholy? Is the dad seemed to be going along with like knowing what the fuck was going on and preventing him from going into that world by preventing him from watching the show, preventing him from going into the TV when he tries to go into the TV. It's spoiler alert.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel about that? Like, they're constantly making you question, like, is this real? We're not, like, I feel like this totally, like
I thought
a simulation type thing.
I kind of saw it as his dad wouldn't let him be who he truly was or who he wanted to be. Because obviously, his dad obviously didn't like him, because you got that from the first time his dad was mentioned. You know, when he asked Mum if he can stay up till 10:30 to watch the Pinker Pig, and she's like, "Oh, your bedtime's was 10:15. We'll have to ask your father." And he's like, "Oh, will you ask him for me?" You get straight away that he doesn't like his dad, and it's awkward. And he's a mummy's boy, but he always gets on much better with his mum.
And that shot from the back of the car, very nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, when he delivers his one line. Again, it's brutal as well, because it's just a horrible thing for your dad to say if it's something you're really into, and he goes, "Oh, is that something for girls?" Or if you're a girl, that's you're a tomboy or whatever. It's be a horrible thing for your parent to tell you. But yeah, I felt like it's just throughout the whole film, his dad was just not letting him be who he wanted to be. So, the bit towards the end, spoiler alert, when he's going into full freak out, and you see him going into the TV, and he's got his head in there like Nightmare on Elm Street freestyle.
Yep.
And his dad obviously runs up and stops him. I just help but think, was his dad stopping him from going into the real life, like being real life, this is who I am kind of thing? I don't know. There's just so many interpretations. The only bit I didn't quite get was when his dad takes him out, and then he's got his head over the bath. And I was like, what's he doing? He's like pouring water over his face. Has he burnt his face or something? But I did read a review, and someone else mentioned that, saying that because he suffered from asthma, his dad was actually trying to help him by the hot steam. It apparently helps if you're having trouble breathing.
That's true. We could be getting Owen's perspective in that sequence and not his dad. So that's just kind of like what he was perceiving was going on. In reality, he was just having an asthma attack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's just so many ways you can read it, watch it. We've all probably got different takes on it ourselves. So it's just like, again, it's just who knows. Like I said, the first time I watched this film, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand.
My daughter brought up many times how the characters seem to mirror the characters in the TV show. The characteristic wise and stuff, and like the dress even, and it's just
So I again, second time viewing, I got the impression that he was in the TV show. He was the character. It wasn't a TV show. Basically, it's him. It's just him thinking it.
See, so like you can look at it like this way. So like Melancholy put them to sleep, and this is them dreaming. Is like this life is them dreaming, and in order for them to wake up, they have to die in this life.
Mm-hmm.
and like Maddie understands this, and he's not brave enough to do that, to live his
Yeah.
Or like he's not brave enough to like break away from from conformity. And that's kind of what whenever he goes, and this is what you were asking a little bit ago, TJ, about like him talking to the neighbor lady or his friend's mom, like him saying like, I need you to save me, I don't want to go, is him saying like he's too afraid to not conform, like he's too afraid to risk it because of situations like his dad.
It's his safe place right now.
Exactly.
He can't go out of that.
And I think that kind of plays into what you were saying too, Paul, about like the TV show is his only escape. And that is, it's safe because it's a TV show, but by him going into it, he's going against the grain, or like it's like layer on layer on layer, and it's really complex. But like when you break it down, it doesn't make it any less complex, but it just makes it that much more interesting, because they like TJ was saying too, they do kind of mirror each other in a sense, but at the same time, the only time that he's allowed to be himself is when he's watching that TV show. And that's why we get the scene of him putting, then that's why we get the scene of him trying to put his self into the TV. And his dad, it kind of goes back to the phrase of what he was saying, like, isn't that a show for girls? Like, and I do think that maybe if he wasn't gay, he is bisexual, and his dad is attempting to prevent him from becoming that, especially with the director's background being a trans person. I think that it's really a commentary on growing up in this world, or this suburb area, where it's just not something that's looked positive on. It's not something that's looked that they see often, and it's just not something that's really discussed. And this is their way of like bringing that to light. Fucking wild.
It is. It's very wild.
You touched on the acting. Sorry, you touched on the acting as well. I just want to say, I really liked both the main characters, but also the first time I watched it, I couldn't help but think Owen was his voice was very much like Morty from Rick and Morty. But on the second viewing, you realise that it's kind of because he's so restrained and he's kind of tortured inside. That's kind of the way he talks. The first time around, it's like this guy's like Morty. What's going on, and like the awkward silences between him and Maddie, especially with the younger versions when they start talking to each other, or when he's goes to the football pitch and she's like eating a sandwich, and he like sits so far away from her, and they just like hey, and it's just like the silences between are just so awkward. But I don't know. The second time viewing, it's just so clever. I thought, and so real. And also that bit when they're sat up watching the football game, and he asked her if she's still watching it every Saturday night with her friend. Was it Amanda? I've forgotten the friend's name.
Oh yeah.
And she obviously lets on that no. She's told everyone that I touched her tit a year. I haven't spoke to her for a year. And then she mentioned, now she's the head of the cheerleader squad. It kind of gives you the idea that okay, that she's gay and her friend wasn't.
Maddie goes a little Napoleon Dynamite too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Napoleon Dynamite when she goes grrr. So yeah, I had a bit of Morty and a bit of Napoleon Dynamite in there. But like I said, the second time for me, you need to watch this film more than once, or I did at least, because the first time a lot of it went so over my head. And again, that's a little bit from the trailer as well, because the trailer it can't let you into everything that we've witnessed. So I was just like, but I didn't read anything about this at all other than seeing the trailer. So I haven't seen the director's first film either. So for me, this was a complete, well, what did I just watch?
It's funny because everybody passes Jane's first film off as a found footage movie, and it's like some found footage, and then there's like also like some really cool shots in there. I hate how it got pushed in that subgenre. It's definitely not that.
It's a fun one. It's different. I mean, it's It's not this film, but there's definitely like shades of nostalgia, because with the internet culture, the creepypasta aspect of it, and I mean, but you could also argue. Is that me
That's
or
Paul.
Paul? Say hey,
Paul,
Paul.
refresh. You went full Terminator there, dude. It was making like clicking noises and like robot noises. I guess kind of like Predator, Terminator stuff going on there. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, with both of these films, there's like an aspect of creepypasta to it, and I think that's kind of like the general theme that Jane might be going forward with. So we shall see. I'm excited to see what they do next.
And I hope this gets a proper physical media release. I know that it's slated next month. I think July 17th, maybe. I think that's the date that I saw. And I know A24 has been doing some really solid physical releases on their actual A24 website. I think they did one for Zone of Interest, a 4K release, and Love, Lies, and Bleeding. So I'd love to see this get that treatment as well, and not just some jewel case thrown on a shelf somewhere. This deserves that extra treatment and all the art and all the accoutrements that comes with a boutique Blu-ray, because it's like we've said, it's one of those films that are just so thick and deserves one or two watches, and it's just lore for days. It's great stuff.
Definitely. And we haven't really touched on the other demons in the film.
Oh yeah,
I love
Polo.
Marco Polo, yeah, they show up a couple of times, don't they? The first time you see them, they're doing that really strange dance in the forest.
Yeah,
just like, what on earth is going on here? And obviously, when they pop up towards the end as well, they're like proper evil, and they're doing all the burying of her and stuff and capturing her. And you very briefly see, I think, the character calls him Bozo the Clown when he's doing all like the weird body interpretation stuff. You only see him for a matter of seconds. But
we need more neon vomit in movies.
Yeah.
Or fluorescent, whatever you want to call
that reminds me of vomit. That was also another weird bit when he tries to go inside the TV and then his dad's got him over the bath, and then he throws up, like he vomits suddenly, and it's like a weird cartoony. I don't know what that meant.
I don't know either.
No, that was just strange. But Mr. Melancholy himself, again, when you see him in the TV show, he's like George Melee, Man of the Moon style thing.
Yeah.
But then the scene towards the end with him and Maddie was just like, wow, different. Again, I guess that's in the TV screen. This is real life thing. It's just creepy as heck with that. The makeup or the effects. I think it's a combination of like practical and CGI. But the way like the bits of the moon just kept changing. Obviously, the first thing he does is just licks her face, and it's just like, whoa. And the lunar juice. I don't know what. It's just the whole thing was just super, super creepy.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Mighty Boosh, and which I'm wondering if maybe that was a nod to that for like maybe the kids from the 2000s or who knows. But another thing that, bringing up the demons kind of makes me think about, like, would you consider this movie a horror film? Because I know that initially with the trailer, it was, a lot of people thought it was a horror film, or at least felt like that they were kind of tricked into seeing this coming of age metaphor film, if you will. And to me, it does have shades of horror, same with the Jane's first film, but I don't really feel like they are horror films, I guess you could say. It's like there is tones of horror, but not a horror.
This is film. Like science fiction drama with horror elements.
Hard to know. Kind of a hard film to market, I guess. So, and plus, it's got a PG-13 rating, which is, I found, quite surprising for some of the effects and just the tone of the movie as well. Yeah.
I didn't even realize the ratings. That's interesting, because it definitely felt like an R, like a not I don't know about a hard R, but it's definitely like frightening. I don't know if I'd want to show this to my 9-year-old just yet.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Melancholy's too scary. That's probably going to be like some generation's Large Marge. I hope so.
Yeah, definitely.
So as we wrap things up, let's try to rate this film out of 5. Where are we going to put this on the pantheon of movies? I'll start off with our special guest, Jesse.
So I am a huge A24 fan. I was actually featured in one of their ads, A24, just because I am that
Oh,
much.
that membership thing.
Yeah, I'm in one of those ads because I am that much of a mark. But this is definitely one of my favorite A24 films. It's right up there with like Midsummer, Uncut Gems. I think that's A24. But I'm gonna say, like, in no surprise, this is a 5 out of 5 for me. I went back and forth with 4.5 and 5, just because the ending, it packed a punch, but I wanted a little bit more like definite of an ending, but it was enough. And then the more I thought about it and kind of thought about the nostalgia aspect and like my favorite scenes, like the sandwich scene you were talking about, Paul, where they're like sitting and talking. Love that scene. Love the fourth wall of him talking whenever he's throwing away the TV. And then again, I love the scene whenever he's watching the show as an adult. I've literally done that. I mean, you look around. These are a lot of these are films that I grew up watching, and they don't hold up, So it's a 5 out of 5 for me.
Paul?
Kind of tricky for me. So the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, geez, he's going to ask me for a rating on this. And I was like, man, I just didn't get it. I just didn't see what the hype was about. I didn't understand it. I was thinking 2.5. Because I did like the effects. I liked the demons in it. And I was like, but then, like I said, I went to bed and I was just laying in bed thinking about maybe it meant this, maybe it meant that. And what have I missed? What don't I understand? And then you think about it was creepy. And then I watched it again and suddenly it just clicked. And everything just suddenly the relatable stuff and the weird stuff, and I'd watch it again and pick up probably 20 more things that I haven't picked up before. Forgot to mention the whole burying thing as well. And was Maddie really dead?
Right?
Yeah, I don't think she was. I think she has escaped and she's being her true self, and he wasn't. Like
It's season 6.
It's
she's
a
in season
heartbreaking ending as well. I forgot with Owen when he's like wheezing and he's like apologizing to everyone. Everyone's ignoring him. It's just a weird, heartbreaking ending. So yeah, originally I thought maybe 2.5, but I'm going to go with a strong 4 out of 5.
Ooh.
But I would highly say to anyone, if you watch it and didn't enjoy it, watch it again. Think about it and watch it again. There's probably a lot of people like me have watched it and goes, "Oh, I didn't like that. That's rubbish," and they'll never talk about it again. But whereas a lot of people just click straight away, and it's just probably one of those rare films where anyone can watch it and take something from it that someone else doesn't think of. Like the stuff you two have told me today, I'm like, oh wow, that negative nostalgia is definitely going to stick with me.
Yeah, it's a weird concept, and I don't know. Like that's the one. Like another thing for me that really kind of pushes this home. I'm a huge VHS collector, and I love physical media, and that kind of plays hand in hand with this as well. So like watching him throw his TV away, that was heartbreaking. Yeah, you can't. It like my kid. I like one of the first things I did once he started becoming interested in movies and TV was, he's probably one of the only kids at his school that knows what a VHS is. This is his video store. We used to have slumber parties in here, and once he gets a little bit older, I'm probably going to show him this film too and kind of explain it to him, and I think that'll be a fun moment for us to share, just like it was whenever we took apart a VCR and looked at the inner workings of it too. It's that special of a film. So sorry, TJ, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You just reminded me one thing. Sorry, you mentioned Slumber Party, and obviously at the start of the film, on the Pink Opaque TV show, they're talking about Sleepaway Camp, and they mentioned it several times, and I was like, why are they talking about the Flitter Rose movie? And I literally had to Google it. I did not realize that Sleepaway Camp actually means a camp you go away and sleep at. You take your kids to and you go sleep at. And suddenly I just thought, so Sleepaway Camp with Felicity Rose, the camp wasn't called Sleepaway Camp. Was it Sleepaway Camp as in people go there to
Yes.
sleep.
Yeah.
And I've just misinterpreted the title of a horror movie, one of my favorite horror movies for all this time. But that must be an American thing because we don't say sleepaway
Camp
camp
Arawak
over here.
is a sleepaway camp.
Yeah. I just thought it had the nickname Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah,
That's
my kid, my 9-year-old, like we watched Heavyweights and Camp Nowhere, and he was like really into it. He's like, man, the camp movies, they're awesome, and like so we're making a list of like other camp movies. And
is Meatballs appropriate for him right now?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised the stuff that he does. Like, as long as there's like no full frontal, like we're okay. And he's pretty mature. Like he's 9 years old and he's coding, so like I'm totally okay with a few F words here and there.
Yeah,
but
to camp.
You mentioned Heavyweights. That's the official prequel to Dodgeball.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, about Heavyweights though is like, so my mother asked him, like he mentioned he wanted to go to camp because he was enjoying these movies, and he's like, yeah, I want to go to one like Heavyweights though. And my mom's like, well, you're skinny. How would that work? And he's like, well, I'll just get really fat and then I'll go to a camp and then I'll get skinny again. And then my mom's like, but that's why they had fun, Danger, because like they had fun at camp because they were breaking all the rules and staying fat. And he goes, maybe I'll just stay home.
There you go. Yeah, so I'm gonna give I Saw the TV Glow 4.8 out of 5. I loved it. And something we haven't really mentioned, that ending is very Lynchian, and I think that kind of is why we're kind of like
Yeah.
But I think that's the perfect way to end it, is with a ending, because it leaves it open to interpretation. I think Homeboy killed himself, but that's just me.
That could be true. I think that for me, the reason I go like I lean towards the almost perfect film is because of all those other things kind of outshine it a little bit. Again, with the negative nostalgia, I mean, not everyone loves Limp Bizkit, and I mean, there's Fred Durst, basically calling you a pussy, and it's like all of these positive, negative. It's like being a kid is not easy, and this is like, it's fun at times, but this is kind of the perfect film for growing up. If you
know what makes this perfect? A follow-up that gives us more lore.
Yeah.
We need this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, guys, go watch I Saw the TV Glow. Like Jesse said, there's a couple screenings going on already. We've seen it a couple times. It's definitely worth it. And it's going to make you think. It's going to make that brain work in overtime. And I'm just happy I saw it. Thank you, Jesse, for coming on this episode. It was a pleasure to talk to you about this movie.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thank you.
Paul, next episode preview. I'm going to make you read the movie title.
Oh, you would do, and I've lost my notes because I refreshed. I know it's a movie I've never heard of again, so I'm kind of scared at how deep this one's going to go. But yeah, my notes have disappeared.
Okay, so I'll just read it for you. It was just kind of a joke. It was Masked Avenger versus Ultra Villain in the layer of the naked bikini.
Yeah,
that's also known as the Masturbating Gunman from 1997, Mark Savage's movie.
Okay.
Yes, I actually own that movie.
Is that Vinegar Syndrome?
Severin.
Yeah.
Severin. Okay.
Actually, I think it's part of their Intervision thing. You know that weird label they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a couple Mark Savage movies, and that one's the weirdest.
I think I picked that up at Frightmare just because of the title. I was listening to their podcast, and I was like, that sounds like shitty enough to keep me entertained.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. I do like a wild title, but yeah, I've never heard of that one, so that'd be good.
Well, it's essentially about a hitman who has to wank to completion in order to kill people.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does it. Yeah.
Story of my life.
May not be as relatable as this movie was.
Actually, it's really nostalgic as well.
I don't know if we'll actually do that one, but that movie's fun to watch. Thank you guys for watching and listening to another episode of Celluloid Psychosis. I'm your host, TJ Bowser. That's Paul Ashford, and that's Jessie Hobson. See you guys later.